In 1984, Geraldine Ferraro was the first woman to run on a major political party's presidential ticket. Astronaut Bruce McCandless made the first untethered spacewalk, and the idea of an organization that would eventually become Arohi first began to take root.
My name is Harriet Service, and I retired in 2000 from the USC Emeriti Center. Now that seems to be a long time ago, yet a marker for me to signify the golden opportunity that I was given to serve for 17 years with the first three directors of the USC Emeriti Center, James Peterson, Tillman Hall, and then Paul Hadley. When I began working in the Emeriti Center, the director, James Peterson, and a faculty retiree, Arnold Small, were in the process of evaluating the results of a 1984 mail survey to 100 public and private colleges and universities. The survey was inquiring whether their campus had any formal organization or center that was focusing on retired persons or their interests. And the results revealed that there is only about 1/4 of the campuses that had any office that was dedicated to retirees.
As a result of the survey, USC and other institutions collaborated to organize a series of meetings called the West Coast Conference on Retirement in Colleges and Universities. These meetings continued annually at USC from 1986 to 1988 and became a North American effort at the fifth conference in 1989, held at the University of Washington, where 22 institutions from the United States and Canada were represented. Efforts to expand the conference beyond the West Coast stalled when the 1990 conference planned at Purdue University was canceled due to low registration. But interest was revived with meetings in 1996 and 1997.
So, a group of original planners made reservations to gather for a 1998 conference aboard the cruise ship Royal Caribbean Legend of the Seas. As you can imagine, that was not a college campus, but a week-long retreat for eager planners to gather, focus, communicate, and view the Alaskan scenery. We were refreshed and continued our request to expand. So, a group of original planners made reservations to gather for a 1998 conference aboard the cruise ship Royal Caribbean Legend of the Seas. As you can imagine, that was not a college campus, but a week-long retreat for eager planners to gather, focus, communicate, and view the Alaskan scenery. We were refreshed and continued our request to expand. So the campus retirement conferences continued then when North Carolina State hosted a meeting in 2000 under the leadership of Tom Elliman. The idea of a multi-campus organization was agreed upon with the purpose of providing a forum for the discussion of all aspects of retirement in higher education. The idea of Arohi was launched, and Paul Hadley, then director of the USC Emeriti Center, was chosen as its organizing president.
My name is Eddie Murphy. I was the director of the UCLA Emeriti Retiree Relations Center for 17 years. And so I was very much involved in Arohi. Dr. Hadley was a prince of a man, and he had a passion for bringing his thought of various universities and retiree organizations together. He was very passionate about that. I was struck by his passion, but also by the person who he was. There was no big I and little you. He wanted to have our thoughts about how we should proceed. And
following the meeting in North Carolina, the original organizers began to plan a conference in earnest.
The first board was selected at a planning meeting in San Diego, and then there was a conference planning meeting here at USC for the meeting in Bloomington in October of 2003. Paul, as the first president, give us a little insight into the significance of the founding of this organization that we now know as AROHI.
Well, Harriet, we think it's important that retired faculty and staff be lifetime members and contributors to their own institutions. And as such, they comprise a valuable segment of higher education. And we think that that segment of higher education ought to have its institutional qualities, its national and international organization as a means of establishing and making permanent the relationships between retirees and their respective organizations.
The inaugural conference convened at Indiana University in October of 2002. In addition to a keynote address, panel presentations, and individual sessions, the committee included an AROHI organizing meeting for attendees to ask questions and offer suggestions for advancing AROHI's future. Following the 2002 meeting, Harriet Service, Paul Hadley, and others at the USC Emeriti Center began the process of completing the paperwork necessary to register as a nonprofit 501c3 organization. The identified charter officers were Paul Hadley, Jean Bianchi, Shelley Glazer, Harriet Service, and Norma Summersgill. The charter for the new organization also identified a charter board of directors listed here. The charter also identified the original member institutions. Together, the board of directors and list of institutions attending the first conference represents colleges, universities, and institutes from across North America, and reflect a wide interest in joining together to represent the interests of higher education retirees. Concurrently, in 2002, a loose confederation of retirees associations in Canada came together at a conference in Toronto to reorganize and revitalize their association. The result was the College and University Retirees Associations of Canada, which shares similar goals with AROHI, connecting local retirees associations with each other, providing assistance to local organizations, and advocating for the concerns of retirees in higher education. At the 2002 conference, Peter Russell, a member of the steering committee of CURAC, was a panelist discussing multi-campus, multi-university partnerships. AROHI and CURAC have continued to collaborate closely on issues of mutual interest and concern. Following the 2002 conference, Dr. Hadley began the application to establish AROHI as a California 501c3 nonprofit corporation and asked Betty Redmond to serve as its founding executive director. She served in that position until 2005 as a volunteer.
Hello, I'm Betty Redmond, retired from the University of Southern California. I wish all of you could have known Paul Hadley, Emeritus Professor and former Executive Vice President for Academic Affairs at USC. I first met Paul when I interviewed to succeed him in 2000 as Executive Director of the USC Emeriti Center. Paul was such a kind and gentle man with a personality that made people want to associate with him. His concept for a national organization, his willingness to put in the effort to make it happen, and a well-established informal collaboration with university retiree groups led to an organizational meeting in 2001 to form a national soon to become binational, organization, and the name Association of Retirement Organizations in Higher Education was adopted. You know, of particular note is the inclusive phrase retiree organizations. There's really no definition for, it was already obvious that there was no one model. We had representatives from associations or societies and or institutional units such as emeriti or retirement centers, each in some way serving retired faculty, staff, and or surviving spouses. And these academic units, they varied in autonomy and structure, with some organized under the auspices of academic affairs, others under human resources, and even others under development. It was decided that all models would be welcome, for our founding leaders recognized the value of diversity. And our name, the Association of Retirement Organizations in Higher Education, doesn't exactly roll off your tongue. So it automatically became AROHE, at least to those of us on the West Coast. Our East Coast colleagues, however, pronounced it with a more refined tone, ARO, suggesting that AROHE sounded like someone was gagging. That be as it may, AROHE seems to have stuck. Following the organizational meeting, Paul Hadley began the legal process of establishing AROHE as a California 501c3 nonprofit corporation. The USC Emeriti Center, with its existing staff and space, became, and still is, AROHE's corporate office. As executive director of the Emeriti Center from the fall of 2000 to 2005, I became, by default, the same for AROHE. My jobs for AROHE were to organize and oversee a functional corporate office, but more importantly, to finalize AROHE's legal status by writing bylaws, procuring tax-exempt status and insurance, and writing resolutions and gaining board approval for operating procedures and policies, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. In 2005, I retired from USC, and Dr. Jeanette Brown brilliantly succeeded me as executive director of both the USC Emeriti Center and AROHE. She's been a major force in making AROHE what it is today. The best part of being involved in AROHE is the friendships that I made with colleagues from other universities, particularly Shelley Glazer from UC Berkeley and Eddie Murphy from USC's crosstown rival, UCLA, a rivalry we ignored except for one weekend a year when USC played UCLA in football. Looking back at old records, I found this note to myself on a list of 17 pending resolutions before the board. Quote, "A successful person is one who can lay a firm foundation with the bricks that others throw at him or her." David Brinkley. I'm pleased to see AROHE thriving today and to have had a small part in laying its foundation. Happy anniversary.
In 2004, the Mars rover landed, Facebook appeared for the first time, and the Summer Olympics returned to Greece. 2003 and 2004 represent important years of development for AROHE as well. With the organization established and registered, thoughts turned to methods for expanding the membership and offering opportunities for retiree organizations to learn from the experiences of others. The AROHE motto, "To educate, to advocate, and to serve," reflects the focus of the early founders. In addition to planning a second conference in 2004, the first AROHE website was launched and the first newsletter titled AROHE News was published. In 2005, the Arohi Startup and Development Kit was created, and Arohi officers Shelley Glazer and Betty Redmond, along with Karen Robinson, composed a study on retirement centers on campus that was published in Educational Gerontology. Also in 2004, the second Arohi Conference was held in Nashville under the leadership of Eugene Bianchi and featured an expansion of sponsors as well as connecting members and exploring ways to support retiree organizations. At this conference, the Paul Hadley Honorary Address was instituted and continued at every conference through 2014. The first address was titled Beyond Golden Pond, The Value of Retirement Organizations, given by John Keating, Chancellor of the University of Wisconsin at Parkside. In 2005, Jeanette Brown succeeded Betty Redmond as the Executive Director of the USC Emeriti Center, which included the duties of the Arohi Executive Director position. She served in that position until 2019, also as a volunteer. In 2006, the musical Mary Poppins closed after 2,619 performances. Twitter was launched, and number 2 Texas beat number 1 USC in the 92nd Rose Bowl. Also in 2005 and 6, working collaboratively and with a team of conference planners, outgoing President Gene Bianchi, who had served 2 terms as president, and incoming President Shelley Glazer, structured the third conference that highlighted new models for retirement. The conference was held in Tempe with trips to the campus and around town. The conference at Arizona State University featured a number of speakers who were influential in the development of Arohi, including Ken Klein from Valparaiso University, Tom Elliman from North Carolina State University, Peter Russell from Curac, Sue Lucky from Morehead State University, Eddie Murphy from UCLA, Bob Scales from the University of Southern California, Leonard Gordon from Arizona State University, and others. In May of 2020, NASA astronauts launched from American soil in the SpaceX Crew Dragon, the first privately funded and built rocket to dock at the International Space Station. The Summer Olympics in Tokyo were delayed to 2021, and all Broadway performances were canceled until late 2021. With the sudden outbreak of the COVID-19 pandemic, the scheduled 2020 conference had to be canceled. With the future of in-person meetings in doubt, Arohi leadership discussed alternative ways to connect with retiree organizations and ultimately moved to offering virtual meetings and webinars via Zoom and other online platforms as a way of connecting and also offering some guidance to retiree organizations also looking for ways to stay connected to each other and retirees.
I'm so pleased to be still around to give my personal congratulations to Aroe and all it's done. And as I've been doing the same thing with Curac in Canada. These are wonderful organizations, and they've taught me that retirement is really a phase of life that instead of being the end of the things you enjoy doing, is the beginning of a whole bunch of opportunities you never thought of. And that's what Aroe has been up to. Congratulations, Aroe, on what you've accomplished in 20 years. And I know you're going to do a heck of a lot more in the next 20 years. Thank you so much.
Happy anniversary to Arohi. 20 years of remarkable happenings and remarkable leadership. I am Fanchan, Fancy Funk, and I'm chair of the Arohi Changemakers and Awards and Recognition Committees, and have enjoyed the pleasure of serving Arohi for 14 years. Our retirees at Florida State University and our retirement association, the Association of Retired Faculty and Staff, joined Arohi in 2008, and what an incredible journey this has been and continues to be. 3 words reflect our very happy anniversary wish and thank you to Arohi. And those 3 words are purpose, passion, and perseverance. Thank you, Arohi.
Hello, my name is Kay Jeter. I am currently living in Nashville, Tennessee, and I am an Arohi member. I want to congratulate this organization for 20 years of service. I am currently working with the membership committee, and we are focusing an effort to try to increase the members' organizations from HBCUs, of which I am a graduate and a retiree. I know the efforts that are being put into this, and I congratulate you for wanting to increase membership in those areas. So this is congratulations, happy birthday, and I wish you 20 more years of good service to higher education.
So it's quite interesting because the 20th anniversary of Arohi is more or less the same time as the 20th anniversary of Canadian College and University Retirees Associations of Canada, CURAC. Wow. So it's wonderful that both these organizations are celebrating their anniversaries at roughly the same time. And great congratulations to Arohi. I think it's a wonderful organization, does a great job, and kudos to everybody who's involved in it.
Happy birthday, Arohi. I bring you greetings from DeKalb College, Georgia Perimeter, GSU campus. Our colleagues there say happy birthday, and we're wishing for many, many more years.
We hope you will join us for the next 20 years of exciting and meaningful innovations in serving retirees in higher education.